The pen hovered just inches above the paper, trembling as if it already knew what his heart refused to accept. One simple signature, one stroke of ink, and everything he had built, everything he had loved, would quietly disappear into a memory he could never rewrite. The sunlight pouring through the office window felt strangely cold, like it no longer belonged to him. Aarav Mehta stared at the document in front of him, his name printed neatly at the bottom, waiting for a decision that would change his life forever. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Stories like this remind us how powerful a single moment can be. Aarav had never imagined his life would narrow down to this. Just 2 years ago, his mornings began with the smell of fresh coffee in a kitchen filled with laughter, his afternoons were spent building dreams in a company he had started from nothing, and his evenings ended with quiet gratitude. But life, as he had learned too late, doesn't always collapse in a single moment. Sometimes, it slowly unravels, thread by thread, until you're left holding something unrecognizable. The company had been his pride, his identity, his proof that hard work could carve out something meaningful in a crowded world. He had poured sleepless nights, borrowed money, and relentless belief into it. But when the market shifted and debts began to stack up, that belief started to feel like a burden instead of strength. Investors pulled back, opportunities vanished, and the same office that once echoed with ambition became a place of quiet anxiety. What hurt the most wasn't just the failure. It was the silence that followed. Friends who once celebrated him became distant. Calls went unanswered. Even at home, the weight of his struggles created invisible walls. His wife, Kavya, tried to stay strong, but the strain seeped into everything. Conversations grew shorter, smiles less frequent. Their home, once filled with warmth, now felt like a place where hope was slowly running out. The document in front of him was the final step. Signing it meant selling the company to a larger corporation, clearing his debts but losing everything he had built. It meant admitting that the dream he fought for wasn't strong enough to survive. It meant starting over, but without the same confidence he once carried. Aarav leaned back in his chair, his eyes drifting toward the window. Outside, the world moved as if nothing had changed. People walked briskly under the afternoon sun, cars passed by, life continued. It felt unfair, almost cruel, that everything could keep going when his world was on the edge of ending. His phone buzzed softly on the table, breaking his thoughts. He ignored it at first, unwilling to face another reminder of what he was losing. But the buzzing didn't stop. With a sigh, he picked it up, expecting another call from a creditor or a formal message from the company taking over. Instead, it was a simple message from an unknown number. It didn't contain anything extraordinary, just a few words that seemed almost misplaced in that moment. It said that someone believed he shouldn't give up yet. Aarav frowned, confused. He reread the message, trying to understand who would send something like that now, of all times. There was no name, no explanation, just that quiet, persistent belief. For a moment, he almost dismissed it. After all, what could a message change when everything was already decided? But something about it lingered. Maybe it was the timing, or maybe it was the part of him that wasn't ready to let go just yet. His mind drifted back to the early days of his journey, when failure wasn't something to fear but something to learn from. Back then, he didn't have much, but he had courage. He had hope. He remembered the first small success, the first client who trusted him, the first time he realized that his idea could actually work. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten that version of himself. The pen was still in his hand, but now it felt heavier. Signing the document no longer felt like a simple solution. It felt like closing a door he might still have a chance to walk through. Another memory surfaced, this time of Kavya. Not the tired, worried version of her from recent months, but the one who had stood beside him when he had nothing. The one who believed in him before anyone else did. He realized that this decision wasn't just about him. It was about everything they had fought for together. The room felt different now, as if something had shifted. The same sunlight that once felt cold now seemed warmer, more present. Aarav took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm inside him. He wasn't sure what the right choice was. There were no guarantees, no clear answers. But for the first time in a long while, he felt something he thought he had lost completely. Possibility. Slowly, he placed the pen down. The document remained unsigned. Reality didn't hit him like a sudden shock. It settled in quietly, like a truth he could no longer ignore. He realized that giving up wasn't the only way forward. It was just the easiest way to escape the pain. But deep down, he knew he wasn't someone who chose the easy path. That afternoon didn't magically fix everything. The debts didn't disappear, the challenges didn't vanish, and the road ahead was still uncertain. But something important had changed. Aarav chose to fight again. He started small. Reaching out to old contacts, exploring new ideas, rebuilding piece by piece. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and days when he questioned his decision. But there were also small victories, moments of progress that reminded him why he started in the first place. And slowly, those small victories began to add up. Months later, Aarav found himself in the same office, but it no longer felt like a place of endings. It felt like a place of resilience. The company wasn't the same as before, but in many ways, it was stronger. It had survived not because everything went right, but because he refused to let it end when everything went wrong. He never found out who sent that message. Maybe it was a mistake, or maybe it was someone who saw something in him he had forgotten. But it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that in the moment he needed it most, he chose to believe it. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like, share, and comment. You never know who might need to hear something like this today. And before this story comes to an end, here's a small request from the heart. Comment, "I won't give up," if you believe that even in your hardest moments, there's still a chance to turn things around. Because sometimes, life brings you to the edge not to push you off, but to show you how strong you really are when you decide to step back, hold on, and keep going.